Howdy folks, I'm Dan Gross and welcome to the first Spotlight special of Season 4 of the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight, Rochester's premier music and interview show. For this special episode, I'm going to be sitting down with two Eastman professors, both of whom are doing thought-provoking projects for this year's KeyBank Rochester Fringe Festival. But first, let's have a word from those who make this show possible. This episode is brought to you by Bernunzio Uptown Music, Bop Shop Records, and Row Photo. Bernunzio Uptown Music, located in Rochester's East End, has been providing Rochester and the world with quality vintage, new, and used string instruments since 1976. Bernunzio also offers concerts, workshops, and jam sessions. This season we're in this warm, local, and creative space, Bop Shop Records. Located right outside the city at 1460 Monroe Avenue, Bop Shop Records is your Rochester home for blues, classic rock, jazz, and Americana roots music in vinyl for the past 35 years. Row Photo is your one-stop shop for photo, home theater installation, audio, and accessory needs. For 3 generations since 1898, Row Photo is there for you with second-to-none customer service. Stop by Row Photo's 2 convenient locations today. First up is Assistant Director of Jazz Studies and Contemporary Media, Dave Ravello. He's joining his own 12-piece contemporary jazz ensemble with local electronic artist, producer, and drummer Sean Drogan, along with special guests Mike Kaupa on trumpet electronics, harpist Anna Dunlap, and visual artist from Buffalo, Armageddon Party, for a 45-minute program called Worlds Collide. They're performing Saturday, September 16th, 2 sets, 7 and 9 p.m. in Kilbourne Hall at the Eastman School of Music. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. So, Dave, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical background?
How far back would you like me to go?
Let's start from the beginning, man. Through the power of editing, we can condense this as much as we want.
All right. My grandfather, T. Ross, had a big band on the road in the 1940s, and he later opened a music store and taught thousands of accordionists to improvise. Long before there were books or anything, I know the accordion is,
Wow.
it's kind of come back around,
Yeah.
And he started me on that, and I hated that instrument. And then later, I started playing trumpet. And but when I was old enough to walk, he would take me to Idora Park Ballroom in Youngstown, Ohio. And the sides came off in the summer, so it was an open air venue. And I heard and saw Maynard Ferguson's band every summer there, and Woody Herman and Buddy Rich and Stan Kenton from when I was 4 or 5 years old. Wow. And he would take me and introduce me to the artists and get a signature. And so then eventually I started working at his music store, and then also playing in his wedding band, playing trumpet. And at some point in there, I fell in love with writing music. And at that point, I decided, basically in junior high school, I wrote my first piece.
Wow. And
decided that from that point forward, the only thing I really wanted to do was write music. So that's kind of my story, I guess.
So who were your early influences when you were first writing music? You mentioned all the big bands you saw, but was there anyone you really gravitated towards?
I suppose early on it was mostly Count Basie, I suppose, was the one that I most related to. But then as time went on, certainly Stan Kenton, and then eventually Thad Jones and Gil Evans, and then Bob Brookmeyer. And then I spent 15 years studying with and working with Bob Brookmeyer.
Would you say that's kind of how the Dave Ravello Ensemble came to be, is sort of the more contemporary jazz writing?
Yeah, I think that it's influenced by Gil Evans and Bob Brookmeyer. Sometimes I say earlier Gil Evans and later Bob Brookmeyer.
Right, and so when you were putting this group together, now were you at Eastman at this time when you were first putting the Dave Ravello Ensemble together?
I'd finished my master's degree for, I guess, a few years, but the beginning of the ensemble was in 1993. I formed the band then, and we recorded an album that nobody's ever heard. But someday I think I'll backwards release it. I still am happy about that record.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that John Hollenbeck played drums on that when he was a student, and so there's some history there. But yeah, 93 was the beginning of the band. So I'd been out of school a little while, and at that point, I don't think I had quite had my first lesson with Brookmeyer yet. So I was in between Eastman and Brookmeyer.
Right, now for those who don't know Dave's ensemble, it's sort of an interesting lineup. It's a 12-piece ensemble, and the instrumentation is a little bit different than your standard jazz group. Can you tell us about the instrumentation and why you settled on that?
Sure. I thought about it for a long time when I was forming the band, because I thought, well, what would be my dream instrumentation to write for the rest of my life, for my real music, not things that I was commissioned to write or commercial work, but my own music. And the way I thought about it eventually was that I like alto saxophone, but I like soprano saxophone more, so there's no alto sax, just The first reed plays soprano sax and flute and piccolo. And tenor sax, of course, has always been a great vehicle in a jazz-based ensemble. So the tenor also plays flute and clarinet. And then I like baritone saxophone, but I like bass clarinet more, and it has more of a mobile quality to it. So there's no bari sax, there's bass clarinet. He also plays flute and clarinet. And then 2 trumpets. And then I had thought about having French horn, but since I have tuba, which is already one non-jazz instrument, I thought, well, maybe that would be too much to try to manage. So the third guy plays flugelhorn only and never plays trumpet. So I kind of think of that as a flugelhorn, and right for it, as a flugelhorn that blows forward instead of backwards, like a French horn. And then 2 trombones and tuba, and the tuba really kind of comes out of the Gil Evans influence for me. And then piano, bass, and drums.
For those who are kind of learning about jazz, first jazz exposure, there's a great record with Gil Evans. He was a jazz orchestra arranger for most of his career. He did this great collaboration with Miles Davis, Porgy and Bess. So if you kind of want to get a sense of some of the sounds Dave is talking about, in addition to checking out his own music, you can listen to Gil Evans as well. So Sean, let's go to you for a little bit. So can you tell us? You can go as far back as you want. Some of your kind of early days in music, because what you do now is pretty eclectic. So I'm assuming it didn't start that way.
No, not really. Pretty traditional. I grew up playing in metal bands at a very young age.
Playing drums?
Playing drums. Formed my first band when I was like 12 and had my first experience playing out at a club and, in front of people, and that kind of sold me as far as, this is what I really want to do. So from there on, just kept on playing in different bands. I got really serious when I was like 19 and started touring with a original trio called Liquid, and we would tour around pretty much the Northeast and a little bit of the South. And then, through my through the 20s, it was like played in blues bands, played in some jazz trios, played in a lot of different styles of music. And then, I'm heavily influenced by, I was for a while, jam band music, Fish, grew up into that whole thing.
This guy, Jason gets it. Jason gets
it. All right, at least somebody. So I spent a lot of years, following them and being very inspired and influenced by them, and kind of, I guess I wanted to get, after a while, I wanted to get away from that. So I actually stopped listening to them and kind of wanted to force myself into doing something different to create something new on drums, because I felt like I was getting stale trying to, I don't know, just playing the same things after a while, playing the same kind of setup, things like that. So when I formed the Manhattan Project with my friend Charlie at the time, he was a keyboard player, and we just kind of...
Is this Charlie Linder by any chance?
It is Charlie Linder.
Shout out to Charlie Linder, 2-time guest on the Spotlight. He's getting another shout out. That's free. That's free promo for you, Charlie.
We, I just had this vision of like, what can I do differently with the drum set, and what can I create to kind of force me to play different. So I had these pieces of electronics and samplers and things laying around, and kind of I actually have like the original drawings of things that I, my setups and things to. So I arrived at the current setup, the hybrid setup of, it's basically acoustic and electronic drums, and I have the use of samples and kind of whatever I want in there. And that started about 6-7 years ago, maybe a little longer, and so that's primarily what I've been doing over the last and it's just made me play very differently. It's been a huge challenge, but a lot of fun. It's like a whole new instrument in a way, and I try to approach it like that. It's not just a drum. I'm not playing drums.
And did you have any formal musical training at all, or did you learn everything kind of playing with bands?
Mostly. I had some private lessons when I was young, on a drum set, but most of my experience is playing live shows or sitting in the rehearsal spot or creating stuff.
I do want to touch on these things a little bit. I mean, you're a drummer, you're an electronic music composer, and you're a producer, and I think for maybe some of our viewers that seems like maybe an eclectic combination, or what do you do on those three things on a day-to-day basis like that culminates in Sean?
Well, I still do, like currently I do play with some other bands that I primarily just play drums, which is a great balance to have now. I was just focused on the hybrid kit for seven years or whatever. But when the process of kind of what I do is, a lot of this stuff might start on the computer, ideas, loops, beats, or chords, things like that, and then I will transfer them somehow onto the hybrid kit and break those parts up between some of the pads or the samplers I have, and everything's different. Every approach is different. Every song or every beat I come up with is very different. So it's always kind of a challenge. Like, how am I gonna play this?
Right.
And I think that we're gonna feel the same challenge, Dave and I, as we're creating.
No.
We're creating a lot of this stuff. It's like, who's playing what? How are we gonna play it? How are we gonna do these parts? But that's fun, and we have a lot of options, and that's what's fun about it.
So, and that's a great transition point. So when did you two first get to know each other, first meet, and how did you decide you wanted to do this project?
Well, we met for the first time. It was actually a few years ago when Dave was doing something for Year of Light at the Fringe Fest a couple years ago, and through a mutual friend, we were in some talks about doing something then, not necessarily musically, but we were just kind of in the same groups of talks, but it always kind of stuck in my mind after that of like, oh, I would love to do something in the future because it's something I haven't done musically yet. It's something new. I kind of think about like moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. The timing this year was kind of just perfect when Dave mentioned he was, doing something, and I was like, oh, well, I'd love to collaborate on something. Let's try to create something really new and different, pulling our two worlds together, and let's throw ourselves into this. Yeah, let's throw ourselves into this and see what comes out of it. And it's it's been great so far. Dave's very open about all the possibilities, and that's what's been so cool about this so far is just the willingness and openness of like it can really be whatever it wants to be, and we're kind of trying, although that doesn't work. You can't try to let something be
right. You have to
spontaneous,
just let it be.
But you have to let it be.
So, Dave, I mean, you've kind of built up a really nice reputation as being a collaborator in general and in Fringe Fest. So before we kind of get back into the process of how you're creating Worlds Collide, I did want to ask you, the collaborations you've been doing are really cool, are really interesting, and really thought-provoking. What kind of drives you to do that personally, and what sort of service does that do to the music community, do you think?
Well, I think that I'm interested in collaboration, have been for quite some time, and it's just been recently in these last few years with Fringe especially, where I feel like Fringe is the perfect place for these kind of things to happen, that I just love being part of how my world is changed by working with another artist, or in the case of last year it was 2 different artists, and just trying to see where that goes, and hopefully making something that's bigger than the parts. And it's always interesting and fascinating, and there's a little bit of letting yourself go and becoming this other thing that I think is really where the best art right now is coming out of.
Yeah.
And so I like Sean was saying, I like to try to put myself in unfamiliar water as an artist, and this is pretty unfamiliar. So we've been meeting a lot and finding our way together, which is great, and that was the whole point of it. But it's a little scary though. The deadline is coming up, and I've got lots of stuff over there on paper that I can show you, and he's got a lot of things in the computer, and we're finding. But it's just I think that it's exciting to me to not know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll know fully what we've created until we step on stage. Maybe it's like it'll be as new to us as it is for the listener,
to the audience. Yeah.
So that's really cool. I think that's one of the great things about this particular partnership is you have a sort of a more typical academic background in writing and instrumentation, and Sean, you have this work of being a producer, being an electronic musician. You guys have to work pretty hard to find, or not work hard, whatever guys, how you're approaching.
Let it happen.
Right, but that's a really fine balance. Finding, okay, we want to maintain the integrity of having it be a written piece, but we also want some spontaneity to it, both with what you do and electronic music. And so I know it because I know not all of it's written yet, but can you kind of give us a sense of what we're going to see and what we're going to hear when at Fringe?
I can. We've been referencing a lot of different bands. We've been listening to a lot of Bjork and Bonobo
and Bjork,
Donnie McClaskland. We were going Dave's been sharing the mutant trumpet. Which
Ben Neal,
Ben
who
Neal.
helped with Bob Moog, the mutant trumpet. It's like a crazy instrument if you look that up.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid trumpet, electronic, and
It's really, really amazing. Ben Neal. And so we've been sharing like music that just to kind of get in our heads so that our worlds at least are a little closer with in that kind of way. Like, well, here's the things that I'm thinking, and then just trying to find our way.
It's really cool. Like a lot of the stuff I've written over the years or whatever. It uses some of the instrumentation that Dave has, but Dave has so much more knowledge and an ensemble to be able to orchestrate things that I really couldn't do. And that's the beauty of it is he can take these things and just make them so much bigger and more depth and I'm learning so much through all that. And it's been cool. Dave's come with some sketches of melodic lines or harmonic structures and given them to me and I've played with them or flipped things around. He's totally cool with throwing the rules out the door, like, hey, what could we do with this? Or I'm changing the trumpets to a synth sound and so we're kind of letting all those things happen and then finding what really and these have been these pieces along the way that have like, okay, yes, let's start to build with that. So trying to tie those things together.
And it's perfect timing. This show, Worlds Collide, we're talking about it one day after the coolest astronomical event, the solar eclipse. We weren't in totality, but that is the totality of this conversation. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.